Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. Earth was harmless. Until the galaxy saw its true power. The Galactic Council had always dismissed Earth as a harmless backwater world, a planet filled with primitive creatures who fought among themselves, squandered their resources, and barely managed space travel beyond their own moon. For centuries, the ruling species of the galaxy, the Kathari, the Draw, the Voron, viewed Earth as nothing more than a curiosity, an unimportant world in the vast sea of stars. The Kathari, a race of towering crystalline beings, had once surveyed Earth millennia ago and deemed it biologically unremarkable. The Draw, cybernetic warlords who had conquered a dozen star systems, saw Earth as a primitive rock unworthy of conquest. The Voron, an ancient species with near-immortal lifespans, found humans too reckless, too emotional, too unpredictable to be of any significance, and so, Earth was left alone. But all of that changed the day the Ru-Zuran Empire made the mistake of invading. The Ru-Zurans were a brutal, war-hardened species, their empire stretching across hundreds of worlds. They were conquerors, believing that only the strongest had the right to exist. They had crushed the Trellan uprising in a matter of days, reduced the proud Balinari race to servitude, and even driven the fierce Gaths into extinction. When their warships entered the Sol system, they expected the same easy victory. They were wrong. The first strike came swiftly. Orbital bombardments turned entire cities into rubble, leaving millions dead within hours. The Galactic Council watched from a distance, assuming Earth would fall like so many others before it. They expected humanity to surrender. Instead, humanity fought back. Within hours of the invasion, human forces responded with a ferocity that shocked the galaxy. They weren't just defending their world, they were attacking. Every inch of ground was contested with sheer determination, every street turned into a battleground. The Ru-Zurans expected submission, what they got was defiance. The Council had seen planetary resistance before, but this was different. Human pilots, flying machines far inferior to Ru-Zuran warships, began ramming into enemy vessels in suicidal attacks. Infantry fought in brutal close-quarters combat, using anything they could, guns, knives, bare hands, to take down their enemies, and when nuclear warheads were launched against the invaders, it sent a message that chilled even the most hardened council members. Humans did not fear destruction. For the first time in their history, the Ru-Zurans hesitated, their ships, their armies, their overwhelming technological superiority, it didn't matter. The humans didn't fight for conquest or survival alone, they fought with something the galaxy had never understood before, sheer, unbreakable will. Then the humans retaliated. Their scientists, engineers, and strategists, once mocked as primitive, began adapting alien technology at an alarming rate. They didn't just fight back, they learned, they improved, and they turned the enemy's weapons against them. Within weeks, human strike teams infiltrated Ru-Zuran command ships. Within months, entire Ru-Zuran fleets were being ambushed and destroyed. The Galactic Council watched in horror as the impossible happened. Earth wasn't falling. The Ru-Zuran Empire was, one by one, their colonies burned, their warships were hunted down and obliterated, and soon the unthinkable occurred. The Ru-Zuran home world, the heart of their mighty empire, was left defenseless, and the humans, in their relentless pursuit of vengeance, unleashed hell upon it. The war was over, the Ru-Zurans were no more. And now the galaxy looked at Earth with new eyes. The Council, which once thought Earth was harmless, now understood the truth. Earth wasn't just another planet, it was a warning. In the aftermath of the war, the galaxy fell into uneasy silence. The once mighty Ru-Zuran Empire had been erased from existence, their fleets shattered, their home world reduced to an uninhabitable wasteland. No one had ever seen a species rise so quickly, adapt so ruthlessly, and retaliate with such relentless fury. The Galactic Council held an emergency summit, their halls filled with hushed whispers and nervous glances. The Kathari, the Voron, the Draw, and a dozen other dominant species of the galaxy now faced a terrifying truth. humanity was no longer an overlooked anomaly, they were now the single most unpredictable force in the universe. "They are not like any species we have encountered," said High Chancellor Vostel of the Voron. "They do not break, they do not surrender. And worse," he paused, his glowing green eyes narrowing, "they learn." The Kathari delegate, his crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy, nodded. "The humans took the invaders' technology and improved it. That is what frightens me the most. They did not simply resist the Ruzerans, they consumed them." The Draw warlord, a cybernetic nightmare of steel and flesh, growled, "We should have eradicated them when we had the chance." The chamber fell silent at his words, that was the unspoken thought lingering in every mind. Earth had gone from an afterthought to a threat overnight, and yet, despite the fear, no one dared make the first move. The humans had not expanded their conquest, they had not demanded tribute or subjugated the rest of the galaxy. They had taken their vengeance and then they had stopped. That, more than anything, unsettled the Council. Humans weren't driven by the same hunger for power that the Draw thrived on, nor the calculated territorial expansion of the Voron. No, humanity had proven they were something far worse, they were unpredictable. Then the message arrived, a single transmission sent from the newly rebuilt capital of Earth. It was short, simple, and more terrifying than a declaration of war. "We remember." With those two words, the galaxy understood what they had unleashed. Earth had been attacked, humanity had been underestimated, and now every species knew if another empire ever made the mistake of threatening them again, there would be no mercy. The galaxy would never forget the day it witnessed Earth's power, because humanity never would. The galaxy tried to move on. Trade routes reopened, alliances were reforged, and empires resumed their quiet struggles for influence, but beneath the surface, an unshakable fear lingered. Humanity had changed everything. The Vortian, masters of diplomacy, attempted to reach out, their envoys arrived on Earth, hoping to mend relations, to study the creatures they had once dismissed as insignificant. What they found was a world that had transformed itself in record time. Human cities once devastated by war had been rebuilt with terrifying efficiency, defense systems lined the skies, energy shields and orbital platforms standing guard over every major population center. Humanity wasn't celebrating victory, it was preparing for the next war. "We do not seek conflict," the Voron ambassador told the leaders of Earth. The response was cold. "Neither did we." The Kathari tried a different approach, they offered humanity a seat at the Galactic Council, an unprecedented gesture for a species so young. But when the first human delegation arrived at the Council's Grand Chamber, they did not come with gratitude, they came with demands. The Council watched as Earth burned, spoke Ambassador Adrian Wells, his voice echoing through the vast hall. "You dismissed our suffering as insignificant, you assumed we would crumble, and now you offer us a seat, not out of goodwill, but out of fear." The assembled species shifted uncomfortably. "The humans were right," Wells continued, his piercing gaze scanning the room. "But understand this, humanity is not here to bow. We are here to ensure that what happened to Earth never happens again, not to us, not to anyone." It wasn't a speech, it was a warning. From that day forward, Earth's presence reshaped the balance of power. Humanity refused to be a passive member of the galaxy. Where the Council hesitated, humans acted. When pirate fleets raided defenseless colonies, it was human warships that responded first. When corrupt empires sought to exploit weaker species, human soldiers arrived to defend them. Some called them protectors, others called them meddlers, but no one dared to call them weak. And then the whispers began. Deep in the outer systems, beyond the reach of the Council, something was stirring. Ships were vanishing, entire colonies were going dark. At first, the Council dismissed the rumors as mere pirate activity, but the humans knew better, they had seen war, they had seen conquest, and they recognized the signs. Something was coming, and this time, humanity would not wait for the first strike, they would be ready. The signs were subtle at first, freighters failing to check in, distress signals abruptly cut off, frontier colonies going silent one by one. The Galactic Council dismissed it as typical fringe sector instability, blaming pirates, navigational errors, or local conflicts, but humanity had learned a hard lesson from the Ruzaran War. The first warning signs of a disaster were always ignored until it was too late. And so, while the rest of the galaxy remained complacent, Earth prepared. The newly formed Terran Defense Initiative, TDI, launched a series of scouting missions into the uncharted regions beyond Council space. These were not official, nor were they sanctioned. Humanity had learned that when danger lurked in the void, the Council preferred to look the other way. But Earth could not afford such ignorance. Captain Jackson Reed of the UNSV Argos, a state-of-the-art reconnaissance vessel, led the first mission into the dead expanse, a vast region of space where ships had been disappearing. The Argos had the best stealth technology humanity had reverse-engineered from its conquered enemies. It could slip between star systems unnoticed, its sensors piercing the darkness in search of the unknown. It took only 3 days before they found it. A derelict Voron colony ship floated aimlessly near the edge of a dying star system. It was massive, capable of carrying 500,000 Voron citizens. There was no distress beacon, no signs of battle damage, it was simply abandoned. Reed ordered his team to board. The moment they stepped inside, the silence was suffocating. The ship was intact, its systems still humming with faint energy. Hallerton meals sat untouched in the mess halls, doors remained open, as if their occupants had simply walked away mid-step, but there were no bodies, no blood, no signs of struggle. It was as if every living thing had simply vanished. The deeper they went, the worse it got. Crew quarters were eerily pristine, their owners' belongings still in place, beds left unmade, clothes draped over chairs. The bridge crew's terminals were still active, displaying star charts and half-written logs that ended abruptly. The security systems recorded nothing unusual, and yet the ship was empty. Then they found the writing, carved deep into the walls, into the floor, into the very metal of the ship. It sees. It waits. It knows. A shiver ran down Reed's spine. His comms officer, Lieutenant Mara Santos, whispered, "Sir, I think we need to leave." Then the lights flickered, and the whispering began. It wasn't over the comms, it wasn't coming from their translators, it was inside their helmets, inside their minds, a chorus of voices speaking in a language no one could understand, layered upon itself in an eerie, overlapping harmony. The words were wrong, impossible sounds that twisted inside the brain like living things. Back to the shuttle, now Reed's voice was calm, but his heart was hammering. The team moved quickly, but the whispering grew louder. The ship, once silent, now creaked and groaned as if awakening from a deep slumber, shadows twisted unnaturally, stretching and shifting where there should have been no movement. Then Santos screamed, she staggered, clutching her helmet, eyes wide in terror. "It's inside. It's watching." Reed grabbed her by the arm, pulling her toward the exit. The whispering became a roar, an overwhelming storm of incomprehensible words that clawed at their thoughts. The walls of the ship seemed to pulse, the metal flexing as if something massive was shifting beneath its surface. They barely made it to the shuttle. As soon as they were aboard, Reed barked, "Get us out of here." The pilot, hands shaking, launched the shuttle at full burn. As they cleared the docking bay, the Argos fired its main guns, sending searing energy beams into the derelict ship. It shuddered, the metal screaming as it twisted inward, folding into itself as if being devoured by an invisible force. Then it was gone, not destroyed, not exploded, just gone. The Argos wasted no time escaping the system. Reed's report to High Command was marked, urgent, existential threat potential. Within hours, Earth's leadership convened an emergency meeting. The galaxy believed it was at peace, humanity knew better, something was in the void, something ancient, something patient, and now it knew. Humanity had seen it. The briefing room aboard the UNSV Titan was silent. It was the kind of silence that comes when people are faced with something too big, too terrifying to fully comprehend. Captain Jackson Reed sat at the head of the table, his hands clenched as he replayed the footage from the Argo's mission. The council representatives sat in stunned horror, their faces pale, their bodies tense. The Voron ambassador, High Chancellor Vashel, had not spoken since the recording began. His species had ruled for millennia, witnessing wars, disasters, even planetary extinctions, but nothing like this. The Voron colony ship had been one of their largest and most advanced. It should have been impossible for it to simply disappear, and yet it had. "This cannot be real," the Kathari delegate muttered, his crystalline body dimming in distress. "There is no force in this galaxy capable of that." Reed leaned forward, his voice steady, controlled. "Then explain what happened, because I saw it with my own eyes. My crew felt it." The Voron finally spoke, his voice barely a whisper. "The writing on the walls." He exhaled sharply. "We have seen it before." The room froze. Reed's eyes narrowed. Vashel hesitated, then continued, "It is ancient, older than our records, older than even the Draw archives. There are legends of entire civilizations vanishing without a trace, but we always believed they were myths." He paused. "We call it, the unseen." A chill settled over the room. The Draw representative scoffed, but there was a nervous twitch in his mechanical eye. "Superstitious nonsense. Some kind of anomaly, a spatial collapse, an unknown weapon." "Do we have a weapon that can do this?" Reed interrupted, locking eyes with the Draw warlord. The alien's response was silence. Reed pressed on. "This is not a myth. We found that colony ship, it wasn't destroyed, it was empty, and then it wasn't there anymore." He took a slow breath. "If your legends are true, then we need to know everything." Vashel hesitated again, then finally he spoke. "Long before our time, there were others," he said. "Empires that spanned the stars, species that ruled unchallenged. They believed themselves invincible. And then, one by one, they vanished, no war, no destruction, just gone." Reed frowned, and no one thought to warn the rest of the galaxy. "They did," Vashel's voice was grim. "They left messages, the same words your people found on that ship. It sees. It waits. It knows." Silence. It was the Kathari who finally broke it. "We have been arrogant," he murmured. "For so long, we have believed ourselves the masters of the stars. But something else has been watching, waiting." Reed clenched his jaw. He had seen wars, he had seen planets burn, he had seen entire species wiped from existence, but this was something else, something worse. It wasn't an enemy they could fight, it was something beyond war, beyond weapons, a predator. The Galactic Council scrambled. They dispatched ships, probed the dark corners of space, and sent their best scientists to analyze the anomaly. But the disappearances continued, ships, stations, entire planets, gone without a trace. And then the message came. It wasn't transmitted through radio waves, it wasn't intercepted by any known system, it appeared all at once in every database, every console, every starship across the galaxy. A single sentence burned into every screen, every language, in letters that seemed to twist and shift like something alive. "You have been seen." Humanity had spent so long proving itself to the galaxy, showing that it was not weak, not to be underestimated. Now they had the galaxy's attention. But something else had noticed them too, and it was coming. Panic spread like wildfire. The message had appeared everywhere at once, every species, every colony, every station, every single being in the galaxy had seen those words, "You have been seen." There was no known technology that could have accomplished this, not even the most advanced civilizations had the ability to bypass encrypted networks on a galactic scale. The message wasn't a threat, it wasn't a demand, it was something far worse. It was a statement of fact. For the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Council declared a state of universal emergency. Armadas were mobilized, colonies fortified, and border systems evacuated. But where would they run? What were they even preparing to fight? No one knew, except humanity. The moment the message appeared, Earth's response was immediate. The Terran Defense Initiative initiated Protocol Black, a plan that had been theorized but never used until now. Every major city was placed under martial law, every military asset was deployed, every scientist, engineer, and strategist was called upon to prepare for what was coming. Humanity had learned far too late that they had not been alone in the dark, they had never been alone. And then the First World vanished. It was a draw colony, home to over 7 billion souls. There was no warning, no distress calls, no signs of an attack. One moment it was there, the next, its star system was empty, no debris, no wreckage, no survivors, it had simply ceased to exist. The draw were not an emotional species, they were warlords, conquerors, a civilization forged in battle, but now they were afraid. The Voron's home world was next. The Voron were among the oldest races in the galaxy, they had survived supernovas, galactic wars, extinction-level catastrophes, their planet had stood for millions of years. It was considered untouchable, and yet, within a single breath of time, it was erased, not destroyed, not invaded, just gone. The Council fell into chaos. Entire fleets went dark, high-ranking officials disappeared, the galactic economy collapsed overnight. What was once a collection of proud, warring species had been reduced to terrified, scrambling survivors, and all the while, the messages continued, you have been seen. You have been measured. You have been found wanting. Then came the nightmares. At first, only a few reported them, fleeting, eerie visions of something vast and endless lurking in the void. But soon, the reports flooded in from every corner of the galaxy, creatures without form, shadows that slithered through the edges of consciousness, a presence that could not be described, only felt. No one knew what it was, only that it was watching. And then Earth received a second message. This time, it wasn't broadcast to the galaxy, it did not appear on every screen, it was sent directly to humanity. Only humans saw the words, only humans heard the voice, you are different. It was the first and only time the message had changed, and that was what terrified humanity the most. The rest of the galaxy had been judged, and now the question remained, would humanity be spared, or had they merely caught the interest of something far, far worse? The universe had gone silent. What was once a galaxy teeming with life, conflict, and politics had been reduced to whispers of terror. Entire civilizations were vanishing like footprints in a storm, great fleets, planetary defense networks, ancient fortresses, all useless, and yet Earth remained untouched. The Galactic Council no longer existed, what remained of its member species had fractured into desperate enclaves, hiding in deep space stations in forgotten corners of the void, no longer rulers, no longer conquerors, only prey waiting for their turn to disappear. But humanity had been given a message unlike the others, you are different. It was a statement, a declaration, a choice, and Earth had no idea what it meant. The Terran Defense Initiative's war room was buried deep beneath the surface of Mars, hidden behind layers of reinforced alloys, electromagnetic shielding, and quantum encryption barriers. It was the most secure location in the Sol system, yet despite all its technology, all its security, it could not stop the fear that hung over the room like a thick fog. High Marshal Jackson Reed sat at the head of the table, his face drawn with exhaustion. Across from him, leaders from every surviving human government, military branch, and scientific division waited for the one thing no one wanted to say aloud, what do we do? Admiral Vasquez, commander of Earth's orbital fleets, slammed her fist against the table. We need to act, first strike before it does. Strike at what? Snapped Dr. Arthur Lean, lead researcher of TDI's Xeno Threat Division. Do you even understand what we're dealing with? This isn't an enemy we can fight, it doesn't use ships or soldiers or weapons. It just takes. We don't know that, Vasquez growled. We don't know anything, and that's the problem. Reed interrupted, his voice steady but with an edge of something else, something dark. The rest of the galaxy was wiped away like dust, and yet we're still here. Not because we're stronger, not because we're smarter, he exhaled, but because it chose to leave us. A cold silence followed. President Darius Okoya of the Terran Union, one of the few civilian leaders still in power, steepled his fingers. Then the question we must answer is simple, he said slowly, why? Dr. Ling hesitated before speaking. There is a theory, spit it out. Vasquez, Ling licked his lips, what if it doesn't see us the way it saw the others? What if, to it, we're not like the rest of the galaxy? What if we're something new? Reed frowned, knowing how Ling hesitated again. Humans have something no other species does. It's not intelligence, it's not technology, he met their eyes, it's adaptation. Vasquez scoffed. Every species adapts. No, not like us, Ling leaned forward. We don't just adapt to survive, we adapt to win. The Ruzerans invaded, and we didn't just fight back, we stole their technology, turned it against them, and wiped them out. Every time humanity has faced extinction, we evolved into something stronger, more dangerous. We refused to die. The room was silent. Ling continued, his voice shaking slightly, whatever this thing is, it erases entire species without a trace, but us, he swallowed, we see it, we feel it, maybe we're the first ones who've ever noticed it watching, and maybe that means we have the ability to fight back. Reed leaned back in his chair. The thought was unsettling. If Ling was right, then humanity wasn't being ignored, they were being studied, tested, and the worst part was that they had no idea what would happen if they failed. Then the lights flickered, the room went dark, and a new message appeared on every screen, you were right. A chill ran through Reed's spine. Ling paled. Oh no, we will see what you become. The message faded, the lights returned, and the war room was silent, but the meaning was clear, humanity had been given a choice, to evolve or to disappear like the rest. Reed's voice was grim. Prepare the fleet, because for the first time in history, Earth will not wait for the unknown to come to them, they are going to war. The preparations for war began immediately. Humanity had never faced an enemy like this. The Ruz-Iran war had been brutal, but at least there had been a fight, an enemy fleet, an empire to dismantle, a war to be won. This was something else entirely. How do you fight something that doesn't exist in any conventional sense? The Terran Defense Initiative went into full mobilization. Every warship in the Sol system was refitted with the most advanced technology Earth had to offer, every scientist, engineer, and strategist worked around the clock to decipher the impossible. No one slept, no one rested, and in the heart of it all, Jackson Reed watched the stars. It had been weeks since the last message, no new disappearances had been reported, no new worlds lost, no further signs that the unseen, as the Voron had called them, had made their move. It was like the entire galaxy was holding its breath, and humanity was left standing at the edge of the abyss, waiting for something to push them in. Deep beneath the Martian surface, in the most secure research facility ever built, Dr. Arthur Ling and his team worked on what could only be described as madness. We can't kill something we don't understand, Ling had said weeks ago, but maybe we can change the rules of the game. The project, codenamed Echo, was theoretical at best, it was based on the terrifying assumption that the unseen didn't just erase civilizations, it rewrote reality itself. The disappearances weren't simple destruction, they were a complete, fundamental undoing of existence, as if those planets, those species, had never been there to begin with, which meant that if humanity wanted to fight back, they needed to rewrite reality too. Status? Reed asked as he entered the lab, his presence demanding immediate attention. Ling, with dark circles under his eyes and fingers twitching from too much caffeine and too little sleep, replied, "We're close, too close, honestly." Reed frowned. "Explain." Ling exhaled, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "We built the device, it works." He hesitated. "It's responding." The room went still. Reed's jaw tightened. "Every time we activate a test pulse, we get a feedback signal from somewhere. It's like it knows what we're doing. Reed's heart pounded in his chest, and Ling's voice was barely above a whisper, and it's watching us back. The decision was made. Protocol Black shifted into its final stage. The first fleet, Echo 1, was deployed toward the last known location of a vanished planet. The plan was simple: trigger the device, force a response, and see what happened. It was the most reckless, dangerous, and outright suicidal operation in human history, and yet, Echo 1 went willingly. Humanity had never been the strongest species in the galaxy, they had never been the most advanced, but they had something no other species had: the will to fight, even in the face of something beyond comprehension. Reed stood aboard the bridge of the UNSV Valiant, Earth's most powerful warship. The fleet was in position, the device was primed. Every screen, every sensor, every weapon system was locked onto the empty void where a planet should have been. And then Reed gave the order: activate Echo. A pulse of energy rippled outward, warping the very fabric of space itself. For a moment, nothing happened, the stars remained cold and distant, the silence of the void pressed down on them like an ocean of darkness. Then the screaming began. It didn't come from the comms, it didn't come from the speakers, it came from inside their heads, thousands of voices overlapping in a chorus of something ancient and hungry. The ship's lights flickered, shadows stretched unnaturally, twisting and writhing like living things, as the very fabric of reality itself shuddered.